Do you remember when your grandfather could read the woods like a map and pull fish from a river that everyone else swore was empty? There was a time in America when hunting and fishing knowledge passed from father to son, grandfather to grandson, sitting around campfires and on the banks of creeks that ran cold and clear. That knowledge did not come from YouTube videos or expensive gear catalogs. It came from decades of quiet observation, hard lessons, and a deep respect for the land that fed your family. Today, we are exploring 30 grandpa hunting and fishing tricks. They stopped teaching generations ago. Some of these will save you money, some will fill your freezer, and some might just remind you of a man who knew things that most people have completely forgotten. Let's start with reading the wind before you ever load your rifle. Old-timers didn't buy $40 wind indicator bottles from sporting goods stores. They wet their finger, held it up, and paid attention. But the real trick was watching the treetops, not the ground-level brush. Wind at canopy height tells you where your scent is actually traveling, not where you think it's going. Deer have a sense of smell roughly 1,000 times more powerful than a human being. Your grandfather knew that the wind was either your best friend or the reason you went home empty-handed. He planned his entire approach around it before he ever left the truck, using natural cover scent instead of buying it. Before scent elimination sprays hit the market at $15 a bottle, hunters rubbed crushed pine needles, dirt, and even fresh deer droppings on their boots and clothing. Your grandfather used to hang his hunting clothes outside for days before a hunt, letting them absorb the natural smells of the season. He would store them in a bag with acorns, leaves, and bark from the area he planned to hunt. It cost absolutely nothing, and it worked better than most commercial products available today. Scouting in the off-season. Modern hunters show up 2 weeks before opening day and wonder why the deer have disappeared. Your grandfather scouted in February and March when the leaves were off the trees and the ground told the whole story. Old rubs, scrapes, trails worn down to bare dirt, and bedding areas were all visible and easy to read without foliage blocking the view. He would mark every trail crossing and funnel point in his memory, sometimes carving small notches into fence posts so he would remember come fall. By the time the season opened, he already knew exactly where to be. Making your own fishing lures from household materials. A spoon lure is nothing more than a curved piece of reflective metal with a hook attached. Your grandfather knew this. He'd cut old silverware handles, bend them slightly, drill a hole in each end, and attach a treble hook. Those homemade spoons caught just as many bass and pike as anything sold at the bait shop. He'd also carve wooden plugs from scrap lumber, sealing them with leftover house paint and adding glass eyes from old buttons. A good carver could produce a dozen lures on a winter evening that would last for years. Finding fish by reading the water, not the fish finder. Electronics have made fishermen lazy. Your grandfather could look at a stretch of river and tell you exactly where the fish were holding, without a single piece of technology. Look for seams where fast water meets slow water, the downstream edge of large boulders, undercut banks where roots hang into the current, and deep holes at the outside bend of a river curve. He understood that fish are lazy creatures that want food delivered to them by the current while they sit in calm water. Once you understand that, you do not need a fish finder, you need eyes. Using a cane pole for bluegill and crappie, there is no more effective tool for catching panfish in shallow water than a simple cane pole with 8 feet of line, a small hook, a split-shot sinker, and a bobber. No reel to tangle, no cast to mess up, just drop it straight down along a dock piling, a fallen tree, or a weed edge, and wait. Your grandfather could fill a bucket with bluegill in 2 hours using a pole he cut from the creek bank and a can of worms he dug from the garden that morning. Total cost was zero. Total effectiveness was remarkable. Tracking wounded game properly. When a deer was hit and did not drop immediately, your grandfather did not go crashing through the woods after it. He marked the exact spot where the deer was standing when the shot connected, then waited a full 30 minutes before moving. He would follow the blood trail slowly, marking each drop with a piece of toilet paper so he could see the direction of travel. He understood that a pushed deer will run for miles, but a deer left alone will bed down within 200 yards and stiffen up. Patience, after the shot, recovered more deer than any amount of tracking skill, making a gill net from paracord in an emergency. This is survival knowledge that has almost completely disappeared. Your grandfather's generation knew how to construct a basic gill net from cordage, sticks, and rocks used as weights. Stretched across a narrow creek or stream, a gill net could feed a family overnight while the fishermen slept. It is not legal for sport fishing in most states today, but as pure survival knowledge, understanding how to construct and deploy one could mean the difference between eating and going hungry in a genuine wilderness emergency. Smoking meat in the field without a smoker. When your grandfather killed a deer or elk far from the road, he did not panic about getting the meat out fast. He knew how to build a simple smoke rack from green branches over a low fire of hardwood coals. Thin strips of meat hung over that smoke would keep for days without refrigeration. The smoke acted as a preservative, driving out moisture and coating the meat with antimicrobial compounds from the burning wood. Hickory, apple, and cherry wood were preferred. He would have jerky ready before he broke camp, and it would last the entire drive home. Reading deer sign like a newspaper. A fresh rub on a sapling tells you a buck was there within the last 24 hours. A rub on a large diameter tree tells you it was a mature buck with enough mass to work that size wood. A scrape with a licking branch overhead tells you a buck is actively seeking does and will likely return within 48 hours. Your grandfather read these signs the way you read a text message, quickly and accurately. He did not need trail cameras because he understood deer behavior well enough to predict movement from physical evidence alone. Using chicken liver for catfish. Before prepared catfish baits filled the shelves at every tackle shop, your grandfather was catching 20-pound channel cats on chicken liver wrapped in old pantyhose mesh. The mesh kept the soft liver on the hook long enough to attract fish. He would let the liver age slightly in a jar in the sun for a day, intensifying the smell that catfish find irresistible. A pound of chicken liver cost 39 cents at the butcher and would last an entire weekend of fishing. Some of the biggest catfish ever pulled from Midwestern rivers were caught on nothing more than this simple, cheap bait. Setting a trot line overnight. A trot line is a long main line anchored at both ends, with shorter drop lines and baited hooks hanging at intervals. Your grandfather would set one across a river channel at dusk, tie it off, go to sleep, and run it at first light. A well-placed trot line in good catfish water could have 15 or 20 fish on it by morning. It required knowledge of the river, an understanding of current and depth, and the patience to let the water do the work overnight. It was efficient, effective, and almost completely forgotten by modern anglers. Hunting squirrels to learn the woods. Your grandfather likely started hunting squirrels before he ever hunted deer, and there was a reason for that. Squirrel hunting teaches you to move slowly and quietly, to sit still for long periods, to read the canopy for movement, and to understand how animals use the forest. A man who can consistently kill squirrels in hardwood timber can kill deer in that same timber. The skills transferred directly. Many of the best deer hunters alive today started with a single-shot .22 and a squirrel season that lasted all fall. Making fire from a bow drill. Every serious outdoorsman of your grandfather's generation could start a fire without matches if they had to. The bow drill method uses friction between a hardwood spindle and a softwood fireboard to create an ember that can be transferred to a tinder bundle and blown into flame. It takes practice, the right wood combinations, and dry conditions, but it works. Cottonwood, willow, and cedar were the preferred combinations in most of North America. This skill has almost completely vanished from modern hunting culture, replaced entirely by lighters and waterproof matches. Knowing when to stay home. This might be the most important trick on the entire list. Your grandfather knew that hunting and fishing in the wrong conditions was a waste of time and energy. He watched the barometric pressure. He knew that fish feed aggressively before a cold front moves through, and that they go nearly dormant for 24 hours after it passes. He knew that deer move best on cool, calm mornings after a light frost. He knew that hunting in a driving rain pushed every animal into thick cover where you would never see them. Staying home on the wrong day meant being in the woods on the right one. These tricks didn't come from a magazine or a television show. They came from men who depended on the land to feed their families and couldn't afford to come home empty-handed. The woods and water haven't changed. The fish still hold in the same places. The deer still follow the same trails. The only thing that's changed is whether we're paying attention the way our grandfathers did. If you found these tips useful, give this video a like and share it with someone who still appreciates the old ways. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the knowledge that is worth keeping alive.